Hello, everybody. It's your lovely co host, Justin, again here at Mindful Chaos. Today, I want to talk about a bit more on how do you approach businesses or entrepreneurship in a more mindful way. And some of you listening could be part of, let's say, a startup. Some of you are probably even running successful businesses already. Some of you want to try to start to run one. And I just want to briefly share some of my experiences that I've gone through. So currently, my current business, I do logistics and custom brokerage here in Mexico City. And I have other partners that helps me to get involved. I deal with the China side of a client side of things, and I also do supply chain and manufacturing. So if anybody who needs to make products in China or produce any kind of let's say manufacturing related, the industry ranges quite wide, but that's what we do in China. And this mindful chaos, it's really the project that I'm spending the most amount of time and energy on. So, a couple of things I wanted to share of things that I have done in the past. So, in China, when I was living there between 2010 and 14, I was dealing with supply chain stuff already. I was visiting factories and auditing them and basically making merchandise for Volkswagen and Audi at the time. I was working for somebody else. And I started my own company around when I was 24, 25. It's the same business. We do merchandise for BMW Taiwan, Volkswagen Taiwan, Mercedes Benz, Type 101, all like little gadgets and things, right? Carbon fiber pen, mugs, hats, anything you can think of when you walk into the dealerships. So, for the purpose of the discussion, I want to share it's like when I first started, it was so, I guess, scary and lonely at the time because I was doing that myself. And I actually did have the longest, I had issue calling myself entrepreneur for the longest time because first I didn't actually even know what that meant, and I couldn't embody the feeling. And I just felt like I was quote unquote self employed. And I had some team members in Taiwan. I scaled it to around 6 to 7 people. I had an office, but I always felt alone because it's like it's such an intense journey that you're trying to make some products or service that hopefully the market wants. And when you first started, you don't even actually know what you're doing. I didn't have mentors. I don't even know how to find market demand. I had to basically do everything from zero. Like I remember the time that I was like sending out hundreds of emails and probably only getting like 10% or less reply rate. And out of that 10%, some of them will actually be open for meetings. All I'm trying to do is like, hey, can I serve you? Can I serve you? And this also coincide with if you guys do listen closely, a close follower of the channel that I shared with my own personal near-death experience in my early 20s. I had a heart surgery. So that was a very low point for me that I had to deal with my health issue at the same time starting a business. The stress was, I would say, unbearable at times. But then again, the mindfulness practice and meditation really helped me kind of put into perspectives when you're in, let's say, a place of despair because you don't know when your next order is coming in. You don't know all these times that you put into this client. Will they be okay? Let's say this project, let's say it's 50,000 US dollars, and it took you 6 months to run. And if you don't close this, how are you going to meet payroll next month? You have teams to feed, and these teams have families. They have like kids they have to support. So it was such a tremendous pressure on me at my mid 20s, not knowing how to do it, and at the same time that nobody was showing me how could it be possible. So it was, and at the time it was quite unhealthy. And I was dealing with the stress was so tremendous. I was dealing the stress like I was playing a lot of video games. I was, I guess, overeating. I wasn't eating healthy. I was actually partying time to time, but not in a very conscious way. Meaning, like my friends would just say, "Oh, just come out," but I wouldn't know why am I drinking given my heart condition, you know? And I would just play video games until I was already so tired from work, but I would just keep playing video games and trying to forget. I think it was helpful and soothing at the time, but again, I didn't dealt with the underlying problem, which is very, very hard, is because when you're starting a business, essentially it's just a group of people trying to produce something, whether it's physical products or service, that the cost of doing so is lower than what the market is willing paying for. And that difference is a profit. And sometimes the profit is high, sometimes the profit is low. And if you're just doing for the sake of doing it, actually looking back, I don't think it's a very wise way to approach opportunities, right? So, how I would look at things differently now, from again, I guess to kind of give a bit of a background context, I have imported when I was having health issues. I was eating so much organic bars that I was importing organic bars from the U.S. from this brand called ProBar. They're one of the largest player now in the U.S. And I was importing organic bars. I was selling at W hotels, 5-star hotels, Taipei American schools, and I was importing organic wine from Fresno. I remember the brand called Bon Affair, and we were the first importer for cup wines called XOGs. So you can look it up, XOG, by, I think her name is Juliana, or Juliana, but it was being sold at Walmart and everywhere. And it was so hard to do food and beverage because the time when we imported and to sell it at supermarkets and then when we get paid, it was already a 4-month cycle. So the stress and the pressure on cash flow was so intense that that sometimes you just felt like there's no end in sight, right? And I want to share, let's say, from these experiences, like how would we approach back to the questions or the title that of this video. It's like, how do you approach business and entrepreneurship in a more mindful way? I would say number one is like, think about what problem you're trying to solve that deeply affects you. When I first started, I just wanted to make money, but I didn't really think about like, how does it help me? And now doing like this Mindful Chaos project really resonate with me because I'm solving problem for myself, and I'm also sharing experiences that I have learned related to these problems. So it resonates with you more. So when you felt like there's no more fucking motivation or energy to push you through, it pushes you through because this is so deeply resonating and connecting to your cause and in your calling, right? So number one, I'll say like really look at what is the problem that you want to solve yourself. And second is to surround yourself with people who are in similar places so you don't feel as alone. So let's say if you're doing a tech startup, being in a environment that has a lot of tech startups and just have like regular dinners or weekly meetups with these founders, I think it's very, very helpful and puts you in perspective that it feels so alone of what you're going through, but you're actually not alone. A lot of people are going through that. And another thing helpful is to actually find, let's say, mentors or people who are ahead of you, who have done it, so you can kind of model. And of course, you kind of have to provide value in some way and be like, hey, can I just shadow you and kind of learn from what you've done? I believe that people in genuinely are good by nature. So a lot of them actually are willing to share, and especially older gentlemen I've met, like 50 or 60 years old, like before retirement, they actually want to pass on what they've learned because they knew how hard it was. And a lot of people ask, like, why the fuck take the route? Why not just get a corporate job and do consulting? I agree. I sometimes do wonder that it would be a probably easier path, but I firmly believe that entrepreneurship, it's such a hard thing to kind of make things work. it is the best way to experience life in such a condensed format, or it's like a potion that you can drink, or it's a potion that's so strong and so hard to swallow, condensed in such a way that you get to experience the ups, the downs, the highs and lows in such brevity, I guess that's a word, in a such short amount of period of time. And if you tell me to do it again, I would choose this path any other time. Perhaps in a different market, just to kind of be easier on my own mental health. And to go back to what I've also done is I also done e-commerce. I also have Amazon. I used to sell on Amazon. I did like we did like 800,000 in 6 months on Amazon across like 7 marketplace, and it ended up losing 200 some thousands. Like imagine that high and the low. On one hand, you're like eating at a 5-star hotel, like crazy Korean barbecue dinner with your boys. And then the next month, you ended up losing money because you have so much stock because the competition comes in. And those are very, very memorable experiences that I can literally taste. And I'm just so, I guess, fortunate to be able to kind of experience these stuff and actually share the lessons. So there's a concept that's like popularized by the startup ecosystem called Trough of Sorrow. Is success is not a straight line, nor is it a hockey stick growth. It's actually very zigzag. And when you're growing, all the stuff you drop off the cliff, and that cliff, once you drop, you're at such fucking low bottom, sometimes lower than where you started, and you last for a period of time that's unknown. That's scariest. And if you guys know, actually people who are waiting to be sentenced are actually most depressed and most, I guess, because uncertainty in human sense, that's actually scary. If a death row prisoner know when they're going to die, perhaps they can actually come to peace with that. But imagine you can never know the date that when you're going to die. That's very scary for human nature. And that term is coined by a lot of these, I think, in Silicon Valley. And I really felt that strongly. It's like a lot of the time when something worked, it worked. But all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. You lose everything. And you can never see the end in sight. No money's coming in. Your partners betrayed you. All the team left. There's only yourself. And nobody cares this as much as yourself, whether you're doing this for a betterment of the world, or let's just say for money, for whatever reason. When you cannot see the end in sight and you don't have any solution to kind of go through, that's a very, very desperate feeling that not a lot of people can kind of explain and can only be experienced. And for me, when I go through those kind of phases, like as I get older, like now I'm past I'm almost at my mid 30s. Like when I experience these type of, I guess, moments, I sometimes just pause and zoom out in a way, not saying to avoid the problem, but to see, have I tried my best? Number one, did I give the best that I've done? And perhaps it's just the wrong timing, perhaps it's the wrong product, perhaps it's the wrong market, perhaps the wrong people. You never know. For something to work, it's actually very precious that everything has just has that line. But just because you're in that state, it doesn't mean you cannot get to the end. And sometimes you just have to pivot. And for me, I don't think there's failure unless you give up. And if you don't stop, it's just a constant iteration of a process. And going back to what I was sharing earlier, if this thing that you're doing, you find meaning and purpose behind it, and you have a group of people or a customer that actually feel so strongly about it as well, that's a very, very strong fuel and motivation to kind of keep you going when you're in that stages or in that phase. Because I think this founder from Headspace, Andy, was saying, above all clouds or storms, if you go up high enough, there's the sun and the sky. So even though that the storm is coming, you can choose how your perspective is. Do you want to be in the rain, or do you want to be in a house, or do you want to be above the clouds? Because you can't change the fact that it's fucking having a storm outside, right? But what you can change is your perspective towards the situation. And I hope that really resonate with you. And just don't forget, like, you're not alone, and we're all in this together, no matter what we're experiencing. And yeah.